Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Horwich. This is my buddy Sandon Totten.
Yo, people.
And behind the camera is another friend of ours, Anna Weigel. And we've crammed ourselves into this state-of-the-art, massively expensive radio production studio here at American Public Media.
I mean, check it out. We've got this giant fancy board with multiple channels, this very expensive microphone.
Don't touch that.
Lots of fancy software.
Hundreds of dollars, that software. It's these headphones, $1,500 to $5,000 at least, I think it costs. Buttons all over the place. The reason that we're in the radio studio is because we are going to get the heck out of here. You don't necessarily need all of this to produce a radio story. And we've been working with some software and some other applications, and the idea that people can take radio recording and production and submission capabilities with them in the palm of their hand, wherever they go. And one tool that we're going to share with you briefly here, that we've been working with here at American Public Media, is called Monel. M-O-N-L-E is how that's spelled.
Basically, Monel is a studio in a box. You've got everything you're going to need to make radio. You can record into your iPad, iPod, iPhone, whatever. Get your tracks right here, put your audio in there, edit it, and mix it down all in one spot.
Yeah. Do you need Monel to do stuff like this? No way. There's lots of free and relatively inexpensive software out there on the interwebs that you can download and check out. If you want to learn more about Monel specifically, it is a pretty cool app, and if you have an iPhone or iPod or iPad, definitely you should check it out. There's a website that you can go to that has videos. There's the website. It will appear. About exactly how to use Monel. So what we're talking about is interviewing, gathering sound, other sort of basic assembly techniques for working with this kind of radio. And I think to get started, of course, we do need to get out of this 95-degree studio and go someplace more interesting to talk about interviewing. I think we'll start with. What do you think, Sam?
Well, I say let's go to the state capitol.
That's a good idea. We can walk there from here, but we won't. We'll go this way. Okay, so we're here at the Minnesota State Capitol, which is known really for two things: magnificent Cass-Gilbert architecture,
very lovely,
and lots of very important and self-important people walking around who you may or may not want to interview because they have important and interesting things to say. So, the first thing to talk about in the context of interviewing is microphones. So we'll spend a minute talking about microphones. It's kind of boomy in here, so in this case, I've chosen to have, it's called a lavalier microphone, right on my button area here so that it picks up my voice and not all of the echoey boominess around us. If you have an iPhone, it'll tend to have a built-in microphone in it. This is an iPod, so it does not. But those little built-in mics are good for some things. Not so great if you really want to get the quality sound you want for producing a piece. So you want to think about other microphone options. This little deal plugged into the iPod. This is a Blue brand, Mikey is what it's called. Plugs into the docking port, and the closer you get it to your subject, the better sound you're going to get. And so that's an option. I think it's about 40, 50 bucks. There are cheaper iPod microphones too you can investigate. This is a standard dynamic microphone that Sandon's demonstrating for you. An RE50, I think, classic from my days as a reporter. These things you can pick up for not a whole lot. You'll need a conversion cable to run them into an iPod or something like that. But this would be maybe an ideal choice if you can go that way because you have a lot of flexibility with it. It's very easy to get it close to somebody and keep your recorder with you. So that's a moment about microphones. Now let's go see how to use them. So we've magically relocated to another spot in the Capitol, and we've accosted Kevin here and asked if he could help us out. Just a little demonstration of mic interviewing technique. Kevin, thanks very much for giving us a hand.
No problem.
So the main thing you want to remember with microphones, whatever kind of microphone you're using, is don't be shy about getting it close enough. Yeah, you don't want to get a lot closer than that. That's pretty good, especially if you're in a big open spot like this. But even, I've heard lots of stuff, even on the radio, where people are sitting in someone's office and they got the microphone sitting there and it's just not close enough, it's too far. So if you're going to get into this, you got to have guts, you got to get that mic in close. Even with the iPod mic, which Sandon has here too, his pocket, he's armed with multiple things. Yeah, get it in nice and close. The thing about these is you can adjust them like that, point it right there. The other thing to remember, if you've got a set of headphones and if your recording equipment allows you to do this, monitor what you're hearing at the time, because you'll be surprised the kinds of things you can pick up, and that'll clue you in as to whether something's not right with the recording. Now, as Sandon is conducting his interview here with Kevin, one thing that he needs to remember is that Kevin's voice is very important, but in many cases, his voice might be important as well. You're not always going to need that tape, but you never know. So be sure to move the mic back to you, and I can say from experience, this is a hard thing to remember when you're on the spot, and catch your questions too, because you never know if you're going to need those. Another important thing to remember is that, sometimes you can set the right mood or whatever, you just jump it in with just the right follow-up, but you want to be careful not to step on the other person's answers when you're talking to them. So no matter how excited you are, make sure you're listening to what they have to say. And if it's a thought that you think you're going to want to let them finish for your final product, make sure that you let them finish it. Kevin, thanks very much for giving us a little bit of time today. This has been a fascinating conversation. So here we are, outside the Minnesota State Capitol now, feeling thoroughly refreshed by our few minutes exposure to the democratic process. We have just a couple more quick notes for you about interviewing.
One important thing you're going to want to keep in mind is always save your work. If you've been recording stuff all day, getting all sorts of great interviews, stuff that's going to break news or changes the way people think about the legislative process, it would really stink if you lost it. So whenever there's a lull in the action and you have a few seconds downtime, hit save. And save yourself the hassle of losing everything and coming home crying without a story.
And just a quick word about courtesy, I guess, because when you go out and start interviewing people with a microphone, it's easy to become obnoxious, and sometimes to get the story, you need to be a little obnoxious. But in most cases, you'll find that if you just upfront and polite and tell people what you're doing and what you want to ask them about, many people will accede and talk to you for a little bit. If they say no, well, then you got to grapple with that, but don't be obnoxious. Like Kevin there. I mean, if he didn't want us to pull him into our video, he could have said so and we'd have been fine. He didn't really say anything, so we took that as presumption that he was cool with it. Thank you, Kevin. And now we need to talk about something different.
What's that, Jeff?
Let's talk about sound. Ready?
Ready.
1, 2. Oh, hi there. All right, we've moved ourselves to this popular St. Paul lunch location. Something has gone terribly wrong with the teleportation process, Sandon.
Sorry.
Anyway, Anna's here now, and this is actually a really good spot, better than I even knew, to talk about sound. Because what do we have behind us? Some beautiful sounds of one of those, Bolivian pan flute bands that you find just about everywhere you go. And wherever you are, even if you're in the quietest space interviewing a professor in his silent office, there is sound, air conditioning, whatever going on around you, right, Anna?
Yep, and it's like what we call sound beds. Wherever you are, you're doing an interview, you're just working on your story, you want to take about a minute of natural sound. You might want to weave that into your edit later on. You never know what you're going to need it for, but it's important to remember to get.
Yep, whether it's with one of these or your iPod or whatever. And you might have very specific sounds that you need to get. If you're out here, I don't know, the sound of a pigeon pooing or cooing, that's what I meant to say. Pooing or cooing. That's the type of sound that you're going to want to get your microphone right in there, because the closer you get, the richer and more disgusting maybe that sound is going to be. And if you're at the candy store around the corner, for example, I was recording something the other day and they're putting peanuts in a bag or on a tray to weigh them. Get that microphone right in there to get the best sound you can, because it's hard to go back and get it later. So, sound, very important. Wouldn't you agree?
I would.
Let's listen to the music, shall we? And we'll see you back at the office. Okay, so we're back at my desk, and I'm all alone again. This is how these things always seem to end. I have brought along one friend just to give us some inspiration and support. UPS whiteboard guy. I have neither the hair nor the whiteboard skills of this fella, but he's here in spirit to help us along. I can't even draw a straight line, as you can see. And these straight lines, not barely straight lines, are the tracks of our multi-track editor. We're going to talk about editing as the last segment of our video. Now, what is editing? Editing, very simply, is taking all of this audio you've recorded in the field, all of the sounds, all the interviews, all of your own narration, and making it better than it is in its original form. You always want to keep that in mind. You're always trying to just sort of improve, but not distort what actually happened. If we're talking about journalism and a radio piece. If you're doing creative stuff, more flexibility. But editing looks, on a multi-track editor, something like this. You'll be able to see your sound when you drag it in. It's something called a waveform. So, quiet, now I'm talking, quiet. When you make noise, the waveform jumps, so that's so you can kind of see the action, what's going on. There are three basic functions, and there, it gets more complicated, but really three basic things that in editing you are doing. One of them is cutting or splitting. So we're taking this piece of audio and we are saying, I don't want this part right here, I don't want this part right here, I want these two parts. And usually in most editors you can get stuff back. You're not losing it for good, but you're just cleaning it up and saying what you want in your final piece. So you're splitting and deleting. Function number two, arranging. You can take these pieces and you can say, put this one in front of this one. Or if you've got some other audio that I will mark in red so we can tell the difference, you could say, I want that in the middle. I've cut that apart and I want to put that in between these two things. And a third thing, you know, will go here. And you can take these and shuffle them around, put them in whatever order makes the most sense to tell the story. And the third function is adjusting volume, because a lot of times sounds will roll in different ways and you may want certain things louder than others. So adjusting volume is something to remember when you're putting together your final piece. Those are the three main functions: cutting, arranging, and adjusting volume. Now the basic premise of putting together a typical radio story, or a sound piece I guess, is say I say something, then someone else says something, then I say something again, and then maybe there's a sound of something like that. Whatever order makes sense. You're taking the chunks and you're putting them in order, which, as you can see, you can do on a single track. And you may have just a single track editor at your disposal, and you can do some pretty nifty stuff with a single track. No big deal. But why would you want a multi-track editor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Like Mono, for example, has 4 tracks. Audacity, if you're working with that, you can put multiple tracks in Audacity. Why would you want a 4-track editor? Well, let me show you here, and we'll use the example of Kevin. Remember Kevin? Strong silent type, our buddy from up the street. Let's say I'm talking to Kevin. The UPS guy has such an easier time erasing lines with his fingers. So I say, Kevin, where are you from, my friend? Kevin says, well, actually, much of the year I happen to live right here inside the U.S. State Capitol building, so how funny that we would meet here right now. And let's say that Kevin and I are talking, and the setting is a Bolivian plaza, and there's a pan flute band playing in the background, delightful pan flute music, so authentic you could swear that you were in Pensacola, Florida. So we want to have the pan flute band running underneath us. There you go. And then big pan flute solo, pan flute solo, pan flute solo, and then it's quiet again. And Kevin resumes telling his story. So sound is one of the reasons that you want to be able to use multiple tracks, because you can't do that kind of sound stuff with a single track. And that helps create a sense of place, a setting for where you're talking. And the other thing that I think multi-track editing gives you, I couldn't figure out a better way to characterize it, than grace. The grace of getting into and out of the sounds of your piece, rather than just chunking them next to each other. Sometimes that'll work, but oftentimes you may need to, say, have the background sound of Kevin, which may be a little different than when I was asking the question, who knows, sort of fade in. So this is a volume function, really, fading, but on Mono, for example, it's really easy to add fades in and out of your pieces. It's a graceful transition. Even under the end of my question, you can be fading up the audio under Kevin, potentially, and helping that to just sound nice for the ear. And it's difficult to describe. You have to play with it and get a sense of what that means to your own ear. And that's about it for basic editing. Do you have any questions? I can't answer them right now, but you'll be able to answer a lot of them just from playing around and your own personal experience working with an editor. And if you make cool stuff, and I hope you will, send it our way, because we'd love to hear it. Thanks.